Hi everyone, good day. This is Miss Sania speaking, and for today, I'm gonna be discussing to you, okay, about effective communication skills. So this is the continuation of barriers in communication that we have discussed a few days ago. Okay, so let me share my screen now. All right. So here's how it looks like. You have their effective communication skills. So we are still under module 1, nature, process, and functions of communication. So our session objectives, just to remind you, were the following. Identify the skills to have effective communication, distinguish barriers in communication, and use various strategies to avoid communication breakdown. So we are done already with the second objective. So let us converge into one lesson, objective number 1 and objective number 3. Okay. So before we formally start, I have here a statement from Stephen Covey. So he said, most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply. Is that applicable to you? Are you this kind of person? Okay, so you can reflect right there, right now, right? So, yeah, most commonly, people fail to consider that in communication, its goal is understanding, right? So sometimes people listen because they wanted to reply, they wanted to say something, okay? So it can be one of the downfalls in communication if we do that, okay? So take note that we listen because we wanted to understand, and we don't listen just to reply to the message, okay? That two ways are completely different, okay? So we must listen because we wanted to understand, right? So that's Stephen's statement right there. So how do we avoid communication breakdown? How do we avoid communication breakdown? Any idea? How do we avoid communication breakdown? Well, effective communication is the key, right? Effective communication is the key. So it is not enough that communication is key. No, it's not. So it should be effective communication, all right, to avoid communication breakdown, all right, to prevent, okay, the barriers in communication. So why is it important for us to learn the effective communication skills? Okay, so we have here, number 1, effective communication helps to understand a person, okay, or a student in a different way. So just give me a moment right now. All right. Okay. So number 1 reason is that effective communication helps to understand a person or situation in a better way. Okay. Second, it enables us to solve the differences, build trust and respect in the organization. So sometimes our message is misunderstood or we misunderstand the received message. So effective communication helps us to resolve problems from both points of view. All right. And effective communication helps us to connect well with colleagues, teachers, parents, etc. And lastly, it helps us in decision making. Okay, so these are the reasons why you have to learn what are the effective communication skills, right? So are you ready? Do you wanted to improve the way you communicate? So let's get right into it. So we have 7 C's of effective communication. So we have 7 C's of effective communication. We have number one, completeness. Second is conciseness. Third is consideration. Fourth, clarity. Fifth, concreteness. Sixth, courtesy. And then lastly, we have correctness. So these 7 C's have a great role, all right, for you to have effective communication. So let's start with completeness. Okay, so in here, message is complete when it contains all facts the reader or listener needs for the reaction you desire. Okay, so when you send your message, receivers actually understand everything, all right, the way you say it, because everything is complete. All right, the basic information that he or she is expected from you, right, were stated. So communication senders need to assess their message through the eyes of the receivers to be sure they have included all relevant information. So that's why when you communicate to someone eye to eye, all right, connection is a must. But not eye to eye in a creepy way, all right? Just in a distant eye to eye, all right? Just to assure, just to make sure that the receiver is actually listening to you, okay? So provide all necessary information, it is a must, okay? And then answer all questions asked if ever there's a question. So give something extra when desirable, okay? So it's when you give all the information again that your receiver expected from you, and when you give them trivias, all right, some more information just to satisfy, all right. So the things or the information that they expect from you. So that's completeness. And of course, it can be a beneficial on your part because you don't have to repeat what you just said because everything is clear to them. Right? So that's number one, completeness. All the necessary information were given by the speaker. Next, we have second, conciseness. So when we say conciseness, from the root word concise, all right? So it's brief, all right? Eliminate wordy expressions. We don't want that to achieve the goal of communication understanding. So just be straight to the point. Include only relevant statements. Be focused. It's very important. You have to stay where communication happens and not wander somewhere else. Okay? Shorten and avoid long explanations. Avoid gushing politeness. Avoid unnecessary repetitions. Use short forms for the second time and use pronouns. So these are the techniques on how you achieve conciseness. Just be straight to the point, no other worthy explanations, all right, to avoid confusion as well with your receivers. So that's conciseness. So the key word here is simplify. Next, third, we have consideration from the root word consider. So consideration implies stepping into the shoes of others. Know the audience viewpoints, background, mindset, education level, etc. Right? So this is actually common for business-minded people. So before they invest, before they get their customer, they do background checking, right? So they check what are the wants, the needs, the do's and don'ts, likes of the customer, right? So knowing the background is important. So you would know what kind of communication will you deliver to that receiver, okay? So it can also mean learning how to empathize because you step yourself into the shoes of others. So when you do that, you would get to understand their situation, right? So understanding their situation by putting yourself into their shoes, okay, is a one way to have an effective communication, because you know what to say, all right? Because you feel what they feel. So that's consideration, right? Second, make an attempt to envisage your audience, the requirements, emotions, as well as problems. The key here in consideration is know your audience, do background checking. Ensure that self-respect of the audience is maintained and their emotions are not harmed. So maybe psychologists are good in this case, all right? So maintain self-respect at all times when communicating. Next, we have clarity. Okay, clarity. So emphasize one specific message, goal, or idea at a time. So it's not good to have information overload in one day, all right? So just have, okay, the necessary topic first and do it one at a time. Avoid vagueness, all right? Avoid ambiguity. So if the students find your lesson very general, okay, so it's a downfall. So you have to be specific. Avoid technical terms which may be hard to understand. So here, you know this, the use of jargon, all right? So we don't use that when communicating because we can be misinterpreted. And lastly, avoid the possibility of misinterpretation as much as possible. Your audience shouldn't have to read between the lines, okay? They should not guess what you are saying, all right? So you should be direct to the point. Give them a sense of clarity, all right, when you communicate to them. And we have concreteness. So in concreteness, be precise in presenting facts and figures, all right? Make sure you have textual evidence, you have evidence on what you are saying. And then use active voice more than passive, okay? So active voice, you are the one speaking. You are the one actively speaking, so you use I, right? So you really participate in the conversation. Use action verbs to make idea clear. All right, so action verbs, all right, are very important to achieve completeness. Use of image building words where necessary. Okay, so you have to put actually a picture in the minds of your receiver or receivers. Okay, you have to make them picture out what you are trying to say, because if they can picture what you're trying to say, then it would be easy for them to understand you. And courtesy is very important, guys. Courtesies in a message implies that the message should show the sender's expression as well as respect the receiver. Okay, so if you are kind in speaking, of course, if you have courtesy, your receiver will be open, all right, to share his or her ideas to you. But if the receiver would stereotype you, let's say, will have a prejudice, for example, that I feel like not talking to the teacher because the teacher seems to be angry or seems to be not kind to me, alright? So that's the importance of courtesy right there, okay? So the sender's expression should give a positive vibe, okay? So you must be friendly to the receiver. So the sender's message should be sincerely polite, judicious, reflective, and enthusiastic. Okay, so this is how we do courtesy. You have to be sincere in what you are saying. Okay. And lastly, we have correctness from the root word correct. Okay. At the core of correctness is proper grammar, punctuation, and spelling. So grammar, punctuation, and spelling are actually reliable, okay, when you write. So when you show these three, it would make you a good writer. But what's the key point in speaking? So what if you communicate verbally? So how can you define correctness in that case? Just know, all right, proper grammar is very important, and also learn how to pause, okay? And speak clearly. Do not stutter as much as possible, all right? Speak with pace. So the term correctness as applied to effective communication also means three characteristics. So use the right level of language. So language use is very important. So that's why you have to know your audience. Check the accuracy of figures, facts, and words. So we do background checking, we do research before we say something to you guys. So that's how correctness can be measured as well. Maintain acceptable writing mechanics, right? So that works when you write, when you communicate through writing, okay? Observe proper punctuation, spelling, and all of those technical stuff in writing, right? So that's it. We have 7 C's of communication. But we also have an addition here, a trivia to you guys. Emotions should be managed in a conversation, okay? If you're getting angry, you have to calm yourself by, number 1, speaking to the other person as if you were not angry. Avoid the use of the word you. This avoids blaming. Nod your head to assure the other person that you heard him. Nodding is very important in face-to-face communication. Maintain eye contact with him. So for you to distinguish, guys, so if you wanted to really point, all right, what you meant in your message, have eye-to-eye contact with him, all right, to assure that the receiver got your message, all right, and learn how to manage your emotions. So if you will get angry during the conversation, try to relax yourself first, okay, by putting your attention to other things. All right, so that's it. All right, so effective communication is 20% what you know, 80% how you feel about what you know. Okay, so that's according to Jim Rohn. So in effective communication skills, all right, confidence, be confident, all right, the way you speak, because it's very important, all right? It's 80% how you feel about what you know that would get the attention of the receiver, that would make them understand you, okay? And here I have added effective written communication techniques, since you will be a part of your summative exam, you will write. So effective written communication techniques: know your audience, have a point, okay? So your audience in your exam is just me, all right? Have a point, always have your point, guys. Organize your ideas, learn how to do the introduction, body, and conclusion in writing. Be clear and concise, all right? So use simple language only for us to understand each other. Use courteous tone, all right? Be kind. Apply correct grammar and word usage. So it's one of the basics in writing, and you know that in the APP. And of course, proofread. Before you submit your writing, make sure to check it first, because you might miss some grammatical errors there. All right, so that's for my strategies on how to have effective communication. And our reference for today's topic is Futura 2017 about effective communication. All right, so before I end the call, I end this recording. When you talk, you're only repeating what you already know. But when you listen, you may learn something new. So listening is very important, and I hope that you guys would get to understand how important listening is right now, especially in pandemic. All right. So listening is the key as well. All right, to have effective communication. Okay. So that's for Dalai Lama. So he said that. And that ends my presentation, guys. And I hope that this discussion will help you achieve effective communication that would prevent communication breakdown. Okay, so that's it for today. So what's important is that you have learned these 7 C's: completeness, conciseness, consideration, clarity, concreteness, courtesy, and correctness. And I'm sorry for the background noise. Alright. So yeah, that's it for today, and I hope that you guys learned. Bye.